My name is Michele Shaffer, and this is News 6. I'm reporting for the 6th grade class at Queen of Angels School in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We think that Fort Wayne is a terrific city to live in because we have such pretty parks, nice schools, lots of industry, a fort, and beautiful museums to visit. Over 200 years ago, our part of the country, a great wilderness, was explored by the French. They found the Miami Indians living in the village of Kikianga, located at the juncture of St. Mary's and St. Joseph Rivers. Catholic missionaries brought Christianity to the Miamis, and a statue of a Jesuit priest stands in Fort Wayne commemorating this. After the French and Indian War, the British gained control of the area. They were able to convince the Indians, with the leadership of Little Turtle, to help fight the Americans in the Old Northwest during the Revolutionary War. After the war, American settlers still were bothered by the Indians. George Washington sent General Anthony Wayne to conquer the Indians, which he did at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. When he marched to Kikianga and built a fort near the village named Fort Wayne, Major John Whistler built another fort in 1815. Here's Robby to tell us more.
On October 8th, our class visited the old fort. It was constructed as a bicentennial project by Historic Fort Wayne Incorporated and opened this summer. The fort is a reproduction of the one Major John Whistler built in 1815. When we crossed the bridge to get to the fort, it was like crossing the bridge of time. All the people in the fort dress in clothes of 1816 and only know things that happened before 1816. Two soldiers met us at the fort and told us about the fort. The fort is a square with the large buildings forming part of the outer wall. The main opening is right through the enlisted men's barracks. There are peepholes for muskets and larger openings for cannons. Windows face the inside of the fort, and roofs are slanted toward the inside of the parade ground. We began our tour in the enlisted men's barracks, which is now a museum. In addition to the barracks, there are three other big buildings: the officers' quarters, the commandant's quarters, and the commissary and hospital. There are two blockhouses built on opposite corners and smaller buildings inside the fort for powder and ammunition. While we were at the fort, we found out the soldiers of the period had a hard life. They slept two to a bunk and ate in a room. They had shelves built at the end of the bunk to put their clothes on. But some of the soldiers had to put their clothes on the floor so that they could put their feet on the shelves because the bunks were too short for them. The mattresses that the soldiers slept on were stuffed with straw. Tom Ollinger had a chance to interview one of the sergeants from 1860. He asked him what a normal day was like.
Well, we had a regular procedure every morning. I would go over to Major Whistler's office, and Major would tell me what he wanted done for the day. It's called orders of the day. Now, I would have to write down the orders of the day and then come out and tell the soldiers. A lot of the soldiers cannot read or write, so they have to be told who is to do what job. Now, we have jobs of going out cutting wood and splitting wood for the fireplaces. We have jobs of tending the garden, and these are everyday jobs. Every day someone has to do the same job over and over again. And we have some patrolling that we do up and down the river around the 6 square miles that comprises the government reservation here.
Tom also asked about his uniform.
Well, the uniform that I have on now is the battle or dress uniform, the blue jacket, and we have the summer pants that are made of spun linen, and the hat that I have on is the battle hat. It's made of leather. We do have another jacket that we wear normally in the fort, a lighter weight gray jacket, and we have a uniform that we wear when we're working called a fatigue uniform.
We want to thank Tom Ollinger for that report, and now here's Sally to tell you what the 6th grade is doing now that we have returned from the fort.
We worked on a number of projects to help us remember what we have seen. Some boys made a large model of the fort out of clay and sticks, while another group is rebuilding a model someone else had done. A group of girls made furnishings and people for the fort out of dough that they baked and then painted. Another group of girls assembled the old fort from a kit. The pieces are cut out and glued together. We want to keep the models and other things for other classes to use when they study the history of Fort Wayne. How many towns do you know that have a zoo? Franke Park, which is close to our school, has one, along with a lot of other things. Besides the trails and swings and merry-go-rounds and picnic areas and baseball fields and the camp for kids, Franke Park has a zoo. It's a big zoo with an African veldt. You can ride in jeeps painted black and white like a zebra on a track through the veldt where the animals are living in the open. Screens on the jeep keep the animals from getting you. We had some questions about the zoo, so Julie Arnold and Molly Conger went to see Julie's father, Mr. Robert Arnold, superintendent of the parks, to have him answer our questions. They asked him if there will be any more animals put in the zoo.
Well, as the zoo grows, there will be an exchange of animals. In other words, some of the animals you see there today may not be there next year. So we'll be introducing new animals and adding new animals as the zoo grows. So we can't just say yes or no to a question like that. It depends on the future growth and development of the zoo.
They also asked him how old you had to be to work at the zoo.
18. That's a requirement of our insurance company. So you've got a little wait yet.
Mr. Arnold spent a lot of time answering our questions, and we want to thank him for our time. And we also want to thank Julie and Molly for this report. Now here's Laura.
The 6th grade class recently finished a unit on France by having a French Cultural Day. The purpose was to experience firsthand a little part of French life. The day began with a look at the French language. A student taught the rest of the class some simple phrases as hello, how are you, today. And we all sang Frère Jacques. Next we learned about French food with a French dessert called Goleeke à blé, which was tried by all the students. Kathy Minnick chose to do some drawings of French clothing of the 15th and 16th century, as well as dress 2 dolls in costumes of 1416 to 1509. The cultural day was ended as 6 students taught the rest of the class a French dance called Chimes of Dunkirk, used to bring people who don't know each other closer together. Not many other grade schools have a language program. We have both Latin and Spanish. The Latin program at our school is for the 7th and 8th graders. The textbook is called Latin for Americans. The first-year Latin teacher is Mrs. Brown, who also teaches at Bishop Dwenger High School. The second-year teacher is Mrs. Hogue. The Spanish program started last year with 7th and 8th graders, but this year the 6th graders are able to participate. There are 2 Spanish textbooks. The textbook for 9th graders and the other is something like a workbook. The teacher for Spanish is Mrs. Pierce. Queen of Angels Parish is celebrating its 25th anniversary. The big celebration began on October 3rd with a special Mass by Monsignor Faber, who was the first pastor of Queen of Angels. After the Mass, there was a barbecue chicken and a carnival with all kinds of games. We think our anniversary has been unusual because one of the last things that Bishop Leo Pursley did before he retired was to co-celebrate an anniversary Mass with us. Now we have a new bishop for the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend. He is William McManus from Chicago. One of the first things that Bishop McManus did as our new bishop was to come to Queen of Angels on October 30th and 31st to talk to us. Thank you, Bishop Pursley, and welcome, Bishop McManus. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you for watching News 6, and thanks from all the students at Queen of Angels School in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And have a good day.